Just come down and talk
Thank
with
you.
you. It's nice to see you again, as always.
Okay, nice to see you back in Colombia.
I must tell you, I've talked to a number of Colombians in Miami who've left here for various reasons, but not one of them has had a critical comment about your administration and what you're trying to do. In other words, they've all given you the benefit of the doubt. They understand that you've inherited 40 years of problems and you've made tough decisions. So you're getting some very good feelings in the Colombian community in Miami. But along with that, we're seeing in Miami now what I call a silent immigration. We saw last year 25 or 30,000 Colombians arrive, most of them on tourist visas, business visas, but most of them also don't, or they say they don't intend to come back to Colombia, and they're trying to get government protection in the U.S. Now, you're aware of this, I'm sure.
Yes. We know that as you mentioned, I think that we inherit this type of difficulties in the country. Many people, even I think 1994, 1995, 1996, start all this process, as you call it, silent immigration to the States and other countries, looking for jobs. Basically, I think that's the problem, that recession started in the country, and people were looking for new opportunities. And I think that's what's happening in Colombia in the last year, that at the end of the last 4 years of the last government, finally we have a big difficulty in this country. We have a unemployment rate grew from 1994 to 1998 from 7.4% to 16%. The fiscal deficit was over 5.3% of the GNP. Interest rates were over 70% in Colombia. So people, what happened is that for the first time in many decades, I think, we had a recession in Colombia, and at the same time we have the problem of insecurity, because I don't think insecurity is bringing the problem to Colombia. Colombia has been in this internet conflict for the last 40 years, but it's one of the countries that has the highest rate of growing in Latin America. If you see the figures of the IDB, only to give you an example, Colombia grew from 1925 to 1997 an average of 4.4%, and I think that's something that not many countries in Latin America could say. We never failed to pay their foreign debt. We always pay our foreign debt. And we were the only country in Latin America that grew in what it was called the lost decade of Latin America.
I've talked to some people also in Miami and also here who say they're afraid. They're afraid of the guerrillas. They do come close to the city. Some, I think, live maybe in South Bogota. What are those problems? Why are people afraid?
It's insecurity. You have not only of this internet conflict, because we've been in this internet conflict for 40 years. And I want to point out, I don't talk about a civil war, because many times I'm very impressed when I read the newspaper or the magazines where I see the media in the United States or Europe that we have a civil war in Colombia. That's not true. We have an internet conflict between 30,000 insurgent guerrillas against 40 million Colombians. So this is not a civil war. For a civil war, you need two bands, and we don't have these two bands in the country. We know that we have problems, but this is not something that it's new in Colombia. We've been in 40 years, and that's why, since I started government, I said the first thing we have to do is to try to achieve peace in Colombia. This cost of the war in Colombia could be between 2 to 3 or even 4 points of growing of this country. So that's why we need to concentrate in trying to achieve peace in Colombia, and we hope that we could achieve peace at the end of my term.
I want to get into that in just a minute, but to leave one more thing on the immigration. Many Colombians in Miami will see this story because they know we're doing it. What's your message to the Colombians in South Florida?
I look at the other way. We need them here. And we have so many good Colombians outside of Colombia that what we're working for is trying to get them back to our country, not getting them out of the country. And that's not only what we're trying to do as government, trying to recover our economy, giving them good jobs, bringing them the opportunity to come back to their own country, have security in the cities, finalizing this problem with the guerrilla, because you have to see also, Ike, that we have now the problem of the internet conflict, that you have to sum the narco-trafficking. And that's why we're fighting so hard narco-trafficking, because narco-trafficking is the one that is financing all the agents of violence in this country. Call them paramilitaries or vigilantes, call them insurgent groups, call them common delinquency, all of them basically are financed by narco-trafficking. So what we're doing is trying to get back the country on the right track of growing with social justice, with peace, with security in our cities, and trying to bring all the Colombians that are outside of Colombia back to our country, because we know, and they know, that we have a very good future. Colombia is a very competitive country, and we know that we could get out of the problems that we're having right now.
And we are seeing more drugs coming into Miami again, for which hasn't occurred in this numbers for a long time.
Yes, and I think that's why we're working on this Colombian plan, trying to show in the world that this is applying the theory of co-responsibility. I think that we know that we have a problem with drugs in this country. The United States is the largest consuming country in the world. Now the European countries are starting to worry because many of the drug shipments are going to Europe. So that's why we're asking the international community, why don't we work together to get rid of this common enemy that is drugs?
You've got a lot of supporters for the plan Colombia in the United States, but there's some critics. Former Ambassador Robert White to Paraguay and El Salvador, in an interview with me last week, said that he thinks that by the U.S. involvement here and giving you more money, that it becomes another Vietnam.
I think that, and this is something that we've been very clear in the United States. The aid that the U.S. is giving to us, 1.6, or now they're proposing $1.8 billion to Colombia, it's concentrating on the fight on drugs. It's money that is going to be used in the fight on drugs. And I've said, because if you see, basically what we developed in Colombia was what we call the anti-narcotics battalion, that it's special units of the army that is going to fight hand by hand with the police in the eradication, fumigation of drugs in this country. So it's going to be a very good support for the police. So all the money basically is going to be concentrated in eradication, fumigation, giving military support to this anti-narcotics battalion, interdiction, air interdiction. For the first time, the Navy is very involved in the fight on drugs, controlling the rivers, controlling our borders, our coast borders. So as you've seen, 79% of this aid is going to be for military anti-narcotics aid in Colombia.
This won't be a Vietnam?
No, because even, as I said the other day to another fellow of us in an interview, I said to him, look, we are investing even our own money to buy, for example, like 15 Black Hawk arms helicopters. We put our own money to buy them, and they are going to be used in the fight against insurgency in this country. We are not using the military aid the U.S. is giving to us. We are putting our own money to fight our own insurgent groups.
What about peace? You've got FARC in Europe.
Yes.
I read this morning in the paper that you say that the talks are going to begin with the ELN. What do the guerrillas want here? What are they looking for?
I think two things. I think that I'm very positive on what is happening in these peace talks. I think that we now, with the FARC, we have advanced more than 40 years, in the last 40 years, in this internal conflict. Now I think we are creating an environment of confidence, and we hope that we could achieve soon peace with the FARC. At the same time, we're trying, since I started my government, to open the door with the ELN and try to get also these negotiation process going forward with the ELN. Now we're having back conversation. 2 days ago, we went to Venezuela to open back this channel, and we hope that we could soon achieve a process of negotiations. What they want, I've said that I'm not the speaker of the FARC or the ELN, but I think that they're looking forward to get involved in a democratic process. This is not something new. I think there's a space for them in Colombia. If you see traditionally, historically, between 9 to 11% of this country, the voter is for the left. And I think they have a political space in Colombia. And I think that what they're wanting to go forward is really to get involved in a democratic process. We have the experience. You know, for example, what happened with the UP in Colombia. You remember that UP, the FARC, promote this group called Patriotic Union. But what happened is that the state didn't give them security, and more than 4,000 men of this political group were killed in Colombia by different groups. So I think that the purpose is going into a democratic process.
Some people in the United States, when you took office and then gave the guerrillas a large portion of your country, thought that was a sign of weakness.
No, I think that we have our own way to dealing with peace, and I think that we're doing peace through a Colombian way. And sometimes when I go to the States and to Europe also, what happened with the DCM, with the distinction zone, is that it's 42,000 square kilometers. So if you see Switzerland is the size of Switzerland or the size of Salvador or Guatemala. But if you see the size of Colombia, it's 0.5% of our own territory. Not more than 100,000 people live in this territory. As you know, it's in the south part of Colombia. This is basically jungle in this side of the country. And as I said before, it's not more than 0.5%, and we didn't give the territory to them. What we have there is a territory in which we could put forward a negotiation process, and that's what is happening in the area. We know that we have problems there, and I am the first one that, even talking with Marulanda and with the leaders the last time I went to the jungle, I said to them, we need to solve these small problems. You cannot see only the tree. You have to see the whole aspect of the peace process, and that's what we hope that they sit and meditate what is happening in the DCM. And I think right now we are solving most of these problems, and we hope that the process is going forward in the way it's going.
How long do you think it will be before the Colombians in Miami, most of whom say they'd like to come home, can actually come home and feel safe and have jobs and live the life they
I hope at the end of my term, we could have Colombian peace with growth and with social justice. That's what we're working for.
2.5 years more.
Well, we hope that less. We hope, and we're working very hard on that to try to bring all the best Colombians, because many times it's not the first time that this is happening. For example, in Colombia, in the years of Belisario Betancourt, 1982, 1986, he proposed a special law to bring back Colombians that were working in the U.S. and in Europe with the tax exempts, with some benefits for them to go back to the country, and many of them came back at that time.
You seem very confident.
Yes, I'm confident, and I think that it's difficult. I think that it's not I don't think that being president of Colombia is an easy job. I think it's one of the toughest jobs in the world right now. But we feel confident. We know that we have problems, but for the first time, as I said yesterday here in a meeting, we are having for the first time the support of the international community. And I think if we work all together, we will going to eradicate this common enemy that is narco-trafficking, and at the same time we'll open the doors for a new Colombia.
On another issue, separate from this, for another story, colleagues were in, concerning counterfeiting.
Yes.
I understand that counterfeiting is a big problem here.
Yes.
How big is it? And I understand that even the U.S. is here assisting. The Secret Service comes and even
it has been one of our issues right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is happening is, you know, with counterfeiting, we have problems basically in the north part of Colombia. But I think it's the easiest and the fastest way of laundering money. And this is something that we're proposing to the U.S. companies also. Why don't we work together into avoiding contraband to Colombia? And why don't we sign agreements? And we're working also very, very close with the U.S. authorities, and basically with Custom in the BASF program, in Cartagena, in Buenaventura, in all the parts of Colombia, to try to get rid of contraband.
Is it related?
Excuse me. You're saying...
Is that a big problem here?
Now we're working very close with the U.S. authorities. We're working very close and trying, because we have captured a lot of bands of and counterfeiting in Colombia. And now with the support of the U.S. authorities, we're working very close in special programs to avoid really counterfeiting in the country.
Has that become a problem because of all the other problems? When you have insecurity, then that leads to other problems.
Yeah, I think it's one of the problems, and more related, I think, with drugs. You know, what people are trying to get is back dollars in Colombia or getting out of Colombia. So I think it's more a crime. I think that it's also very, very oriented to the drug problem also in our country. I was
going to ask you, do you think the drug trade is involved with this type of operation?
Well, they have a lot of dollars that they want to bring back to Colombia, and that's why they look for a different type of businesses to get these money laundering. One of them is contraband. That is very big with the United States. As you know, we're working very close also with the U.S. authorities to avoid contraband to Colombia. And I think this could be one of the other businesses that they want to have.
But the U.S. is here working on this falsification.
I think yes, special agents are working, or special agencies are working with Colombia, trying to get rid of this problem.
Finally, anything you'd like to add to, again, this program will be seen nationally, but it's really, the focus is on Florida. Any message?
I think getting back to the Colombians in Florida, that we know we have so many down there that we know that we have problems, that we inherit a lot of problems in this country. But for the first time in 1.5 years, we're seeing the light of the end of the tunnel. The economy is trying to reactivate now. We have signs that show that we are working forward and we are advancing in the peace process, so that we hope that we could have the Colombia that we want, a Colombian peace with social justice, and that it will give back the opportunity to all Colombians, not only in Florida, in the United States, in Europe, to return to this country to help to construct the Colombia that we want.
Are you happy with?
What concerns Americans always is and I was a Vietnam veteran, and I know what that was all about, and I've covered all of these wars in Salvador and places. And it always concerns Americans to see American military to be in a country like Colombia where there are problems, and we say, oh, that means we're going to get involved, and gee, that might mean Vietnam.
I've said very clear that in my whole term, the 4 years I'm going to be president of Colombia, will never be a foreign intervention in this country with presence of military troops, call them Americans or from other countries. That's something that has been very clear, and I've said it very clear. Secondly, what we try and we're doing is to, first of all, get the aid, as I said before, in the fight on drugs. I think that's what we need.
The fight on drugs is where it has to go.
That's right, and that's where we're putting all the money that the U.S. is giving. But because if you see, for example, this year the U.S. package is going to give us about $954 million. Of those $954 million, $454 million are going to buy Black Hawks and UH-1N, the Bell helicopter, to the fight on drugs. So basically that's concentrating in equipment, not in men. But what we're asking the U.S. and we're working, that is special training for the anti-narcotics battalion. And that's why there are U.S. trainers in Colombia training this special battalion to be involved in the fight against drugs. Okay.
I'd like to apologize for Miami being the location for Colombia losing to Honduras.
Oh my God!
I'm very sorry about that.
Don't tell me that.
But we will be there on Saturday to see them play anyway.
That's U.S. Colombia? Saturday?
No, Colombia lost to Honduras, so Colombia is dropped out of the championship bracket of the Gold Cup. So,
oh my God.
And it happened in Miami. So, Mr. President, I'm sorry for that.
Oh my God!
All right.
Don't tell me that, huh?
All right.
No?
Not,
¿Lo eliminaron?
No. Peru, U.S. beat Peru, Honduras beat Colombia. Therefore, the United States plays Honduras of all people.
No, let me see. Oiga, ¿pero qué pasa el domingo? ¿El sábado? ¿Cuándo? ¿Estados Unidos, Colombia? We're having problems with the soccer right now. We're having such amount of problem. We changed the coach 1 week ago. So that's why we're getting a little help.
Have we finished?
No, I need to cut away.
All right. Okay. I was asking, have you? You're doing such. It's just the strangest thing. To think that we don't pay much attention to South America as we don't pay any attention to it anymore. I mean, we used to come here. We live here.
Yeah,
we lived in Latin America.
Yeah, right.
We just don't spend the attention. I spend more time in the Middle East.